Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to the Discipleship Begins at Home podcast. I'm Pastor Jeremy Bannister. This is Trinidad Gerardo, and this is a podcast we didn't think we were going to be doing. We actually were planning, if you were with us, we've been doing every other week for a while, but we've been pumping this idea of the Homeschool Awakening, the Kirk Cameron movie, and we just got finished watching that. And we kind of want to give you our reaction to that, so we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about that today. But before we get to that, tell you a little bit about ourselves and our ministry here. We are the Next Generation Ministries. You can check out our website up top and go to our website there. You can find resources for you and your family. Our whole ministry is designed to help you as parents disciple your kids to maturity in the Lord. We have resources that are there that are for you, that are free, that you can find there. We encourage you to check out from that page. You can get to our Facebook on the homepage there on our website. You can get to our Facebook. And obviously, if you're watching here, you're watching the YouTube channel. So we would love for you to like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, so you can get all of this material that we have for you. One of the things that we have for you as parents that we believe is so valuable that we are able to provide for you are these blueprints that we have back here. One of them is the Discipleship for Life edition, and this helps you as parents walk your children through in a very tangible way from the time of birth all the way through high school. If you're starting your discipleship process for any children that are under 5th grade, this is the blueprint we would request that you should request. It'll help you all the way through high school with your kids. If your kids are older, if you're starting this discipleship process on a little bit later, maybe you and your family have come to the faith at a later time, we have a 5-year plan. And this is what we would encourage both for parents as well as youth that are 6th grade and older. And it'll walk you through a time to really help you know as parents that you're doing all that you can do to help your children become mature disciples in Jesus Christ, because that's our goal here. We want to see that for you. But let's get to talking today about this movie, because I know Trinidad and I, we've pumped it here a few times. We've talked about it. We've put it. I think I put it on the website as well.
Yeah. It was on our homeschool episode.
Yeah, it was on our homeschool episode, and we've got that one. We've got a homeschool episode also linked in our description below with some of the resources that we'll be mentioning this episode. But yeah, so we want to talk about, we kind of want to talk about the movie just in general, because we watched it together. We went together as our families, and we walked out, and we had a lot of thoughts. We sat down and really just kind of debriefed. What did we just watch? What did we see? How did that go? Now, one of the things you need to know about Trinidad and myself is we're both homeschool families. Yep. So my kids are now up and through high school, and so we started when my oldest was in 2nd grade, and my youngest, with the exception of her 3rd grade year, all she ever knew was homeschool. And so my son also, with the exception of his 5th grade year, all he ever knew was homeschool. My daughter had a couple of had 3 years in the middle of that where she had some public schooling during that time. So we're kind of knowledgeable walking into this to see what it's all about. But we're very excited about the movie. And so here's what we want to do. We want to talk about what the Homeschool Awakening got right. We want to start off on the good things, because there were a lot of good things. There really, really were. Yep. And so you're going to get some reaction. We've had a day to think about it a little bit. And so
to sleep on it, dream about it.
Yeah. And so Trinidad, what were some takeaways that you thought that they got right?
What the main takeaway I got was it was all biblical. Their whole reasons, not all the reasons, but most of the reasons was because they wanted to train them up in the Lord. And that was a big plus in our book right there. Definitely. Kirk Cameron did a great job. The beginning of the movie was explaining his awakening to homeschooling. Him and his wife were talking about it, why they wanted to do it, all the families, their reasons for doing it. And it was a lot of it was we can relate to some of it, to their thoughts on why they wanted to homeschool. They had different backgrounds of families there. They had, big families, small families. It was a lot of good things to take away from their scheduling on how they were doing these things.
I think
that was pretty good.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I can't remember which family said this, but one of the families toward the end, one of the things they did a really good job was they talked about many of the benefits of homeschooling. And one family said that they actually tallied up the time that they got to be with their kids.
Yeah.
And it stood out to me. It says, we got to spend, as a result of us homeschooling our kids, 16,000 hours more with our kids. In that limited commodity of time that you have with your kids before they're out of the house. I thought that really stood out to me. I thought that was a great observation by somebody who, was just thinking about it as far as time-wise was concerned. So I thought that was really neat.
Yeah, that was a really great aha moment. Because I remember, all three of my kids were homeschooled, some later in life, but they did get homeschooled. Our youngest now has been homeschooled her whole life. So a lot of that time has come back to us in a way that we can train them in the Lord. Right. And so that kind of blew my mind on how much hours they gained back. I was like, wow, that's so real because of, the kids are in public school and they're there 8-9 hours a day. Right. But one of the things that stood out to me, I thought was great, was how the relationships with the parents have gotten stronger and they're together all the time. And it's a great thing. I mean, we joke saying sometimes, our kids get on our nerves, but in all reality, they're our kids. We love them and we love spending time with them because of the things that come out of their mouth, and it's awesome to hear that and just to see how those relationships change, and they are growing together in their family and their faith, and it was really awesome thing to see.
Going back to your first point when you talked about the whole idea of discipleship with their kids, which was huge on our book, right? Yeah. But one of the sermon I did at the beginning of the year at our church, we talked about the time that we have, that we said, we looked at Jesus and we talked about how long it took Jesus to make a disciple. Right. And, if we said that Jesus was a heavy sleeper, okay, let's say he slept 12 hours a day. We don't know. Scripture doesn't say how often he slept, okay? So let's say he was a heavy sleeper, 12 hours a day. Well, he would have spent 12 hours a day, 3.5 years with his disciples. That comes to 15,000 hours. It's roughly the same number that this homeschool dad had tallied up of all the extra time he had with his kids. Yeah. In other words, because they were able to homeschool, they could actually spend the time discipling as Jesus did. They really, really could. They could build in the time. There's no replacement for time. There just isn't. Yeah. That's why Jesus spent 3.5 years with his disciples. And it's why we're called as parents to disciple our kids. We have to be intentional. And while homeschooling may not necessarily be for everyone, discipleship of your children is. And so those types of things resonated with me. When he came up with that number, it just reminded me because, if we went with just an 8-hour day where he slept, it's actually 20,000 hours that Jesus spent with his disciples in that 3.5 year period of time. So that's 16,000 hours to recoup with your kids literally falls within that range that Jesus would have spent with his disciples. And this really stood out. I mean, that's just one of those things. Maybe because I'm a numbers geek. I mentioned this to David Wolcott, and he was like, you should put that on a infogram, right? Or info, whatever you call those things. But anyway, should make a chart out of it, right? So basically a really like neat online chart. I may yet do that, but just mentioning it here because it just stood out to me.
Yeah. I think some of the other things were how they came to be able to homeschool their kids. A lot of it was they were missing that time with their children. They were seeing that, one of the dads talked about he would go to work, kids would be at school. He would leave first thing in the morning, not really see his kids. They would be at school all day long. He would come home maybe for a few hours. He would have time with them off the bed, routine over again. So a lot of that was how we kind of changed in a way as well in our homeschool thinking. And just being able to hear the parents talk about, we want to raise our kids up in the Lord. We want to be able to spend time with them. And one of the things that I remember too is that stood out was like, well, what better teachers than the parents themselves?
Yeah, absolutely.
That stood out to me a lot because, you got to remember one of the things they talked about was you have the teachers have to follow a strict schedule. They're being taught, all the kids are being taught one thing. There could be, as we see schools nowadays, they have 20, 30 kids in one class to one teacher.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy. And what I liked is that they can teach their kids one-on-one. They have different ages, but they could all teach them the same thing, but they're all together learning.
Yeah, or they're rotating them out.
Yes,
or some of the older
them out.
kids were teaching the younger kids. They were being a lot more efficient with their time as a result of it, and they could learn more in a shorter period of time.
Right.
So they didn't have to spend 7-8 hours in order to get the learning in because you're not in classrooms with 20, 30 people, right? Mm-hmm. And so that was something that they pointed out, I think really well as well. I think they were really good with hitting the misconceptions, right? The misconceptions about homeschooling, the idea of socialization and all the fears, like I'm not smart enough to be able to do this. Yeah. I think that one of the strengths of this movie, especially early on, because they hit that really early, was, can I do this? Can parents do this? What if you wanted a rah film, right? That really encourages you as a parent to give you the idea that you can do this. I think especially that first part of the film where they talk about probably many of the fears that parents have. They did a very good job at addressing those things and talking about how it's not as bad as you think that it is. As a matter of fact, a lot of times homeschooling families are ahead of the curve on the very things everybody else is worried about. Yep. And they give the reasons why. And I don't want to spoil that for you if you haven't seen it or if you want to go and see it, but I do want to say they do cover those things. I think they cover them well. They really do in the midst of all of that.
Yeah. And the movie was a great encouragement. Yeah. It was fun. It was fast paced, so it kept things going. It didn't get boring at all. Which was good because, then you end up falling asleep. Who wants that? But it stayed the course of what it was supposed to do, which was to encourage families to homeschool. My wife always says there should be a mass exodus of Christian families leaving public school to homeschool. And we agree with that. And we also know that it's not meant for everybody, but the Lord will help you. He will provide everything that you need to homeschool your kids. You are not alone. That's one thing they said.
Yep.
In the movie is that families are not alone. You have
a lot of people.
You can find other encouragements of homeschooling and all these other type of things. And I just love that it was very fun-loving movie, and it was just so full of encouragement. That it was good.
I think one of the unsung heroes of the entire movie was Dr. Kathy Koch, right? I want to say Koch, but I know that's not right. But Dr. Kathy Koch,
yes,
she was amazing, honestly, and honestly, as people who have been homeschooling for a while, what we saw in a lot of the movie, we'd already walked through. So we're looking at it as, would this encourage a parent whom we're trying to encourage to think about homeschooling?
Right.
I think the answer is yes. But as somebody who is a veteran and somebody who's walked through this, Kathy Koch was amazing. And she had talked about the idea of different types of smarts, and she talked about the book that she had, which immediately your wife wrote down, and it's for you guys too. We wrote it down for you. It's in the description section on this very live stream because we wanted that for you as well. It's called 8 Great Smarts, and her whole thing was talking about children, no matter what child you have are smart, but what type of smart are they? And school systems oftentimes focus on just one or two of these, but there's 8 different realms of smarts. And knowing those can be tremendous in helping you as a parent with children who are different from one another. Right? Just like different teachers in the classroom. And so, one of the things that they highlighted in there was how some people had very bad school experiences, that they were told that they were dumb, right? You said the same thing, right?
Yeah. One of the fathers talked about how when he was in class, he had the story, just a little kind of a spoiler, but not really, was that he had a student sitting next to him cheating off of him, and he told the teacher told him not to worry about it because you're not smart enough to be cheated on anyway. And he just was, after that, he said he was just downhill self-esteem. I can relate to that because I hated school growing up. I hated public school. I had a hard time. I barely graduated, and it wasn't all the teacher's fault. I know some of it was mine because I just didn't want to do anything.
Right.
But I didn't like school. I didn't enjoy it. I liked the socialization. I liked hanging out with my friends, just going on field trips, that type of thing. I did not like it. So thinking to myself on the ride home, after we watched it, I was like, maybe homeschool would have benefited me when I was a kid. And I think it would have, because to this day, I have certain things that still I have a hard time with. Math is one of them. Jeremy's a numbers guy. I hate numbers. I'm not a math person. So when my daughter has a math issue, ask your mother. But those are the things that she talks about where all the kids are different. I think some of them were like logic smarts, people smart. I'm not going to get all of them. People smarts, creative smarts, and nature smarts. I think just to name a few.
Just to name a few of them.
That she talked about. But all our kids are different. All our kids are smart. We always hear that the intellectuals are super smart. We can never reach that level. We can. This is my thought, my opinion, that we can reach that level. We just have to work hard at it and try. That's it.
And I think that they're just things that people are more inclined toward doing, right?
Totally.
So even as adults, we recognize that there are some things that as an adult, I could never do certain jobs that other people can do. And that doesn't make me dumb that I can, right? Because I have a different role. And the body of Christ is beautiful in that way, in that we're one body, but we have all these different parts.
Right.
And none of the parts are unnecessary. And so 1 Corinthians 12 is so important to teach our children that it may be just a different part of the body. And I think these 8 great smarts kind of highlight that type of change. So I just thought she was the unsung hero of the movie personally, and took so much from the things that she said. Every single time she was on, she said something profound. And so when you guys watch it, listen, it's pretty awesome as far as that was concerned. All right, so we talked about the good. These are the things that they got right, which they did. They got a lot of things right.
Yeah.
But we also want to talk about what the Homeschool Awakening lacks, because there were a number of things that it did lack, and they kind of stood out to us. There were some issues that happened that I kept waiting in the movie for these things to be seen. I mean, so first thing you came out of the movie, what'd you say?
Well, my wife and Jeremy were sitting there talking, and then I came out, and Jeremy looked at me. He's like, "What was your reaction to the movie?" My reaction is, I'm kind of blunt sometimes, and I don't mean to be. It's just one of those things that happens. I only talk the way I know how, which is using my words and everything. So when I came out, I looked at Jeremy. I was like, I thought it was too pretty. And what I meant by that was it was too Hollywood-like, perfect.
It was Facebook, Instagram picture.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And so what I mean by that is even Sherry Ann walked out and was saying, I think an unintended consequence was that, what am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
Was her reaction. What am I doing wrong? I don't have anything like that. all of the people that they had seen, everything was perfectly organized. Everything was perfectly in place. Everything was labeled so nicely.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, I get it. I mean, you're trying to show them, and some people are like that. But you know what? We ain't like that. Nope. And I'll tell you, Sherry Ann's a whole lot more organized than me and my household. It's not even close, okay? Her idea of dirty is our idea of clean, okay? Am I wrong?
No, you're
okay,
not.
Thank you. Okay, I just wanted to throw that out there. But
yeah.
You know what? We still homeschooled our kids. Mm-hmm. And we homeschooled them well, I believe. I really do. Yeah. And differently, because our kids were all different. I would have loved for them to have spent some time, and I think that's what Sherry Ann wanted to be able to see, was not just the picture perfect one. Show a messy room. Mm-hmm. Show the chaos, right?
Yeah. Show the kids arguing with the parents, because it happens.
Yeah.
So my wife was talking about, she was all, because there's times when I come home from work and she's homeschooling our daughter, and then there's like, as soon as I walk in the door, there's tension.
Yeah.
There's heads being butted. There was none of that in this movie. Everything was...
They mention it.
Yeah,
they mention it. They said, and some days you just don't have a good day, and so you pack up all the kids and take a drive or whatever. That was the extent of what they said. You didn't see the reaction and the tantrums and the kicking. Everybody was fine, which is good. I know they were trying for a positive film, but I would have liked it to be a little bit more realistic.
Real, yes.
Not over the top, not only showing, not the Jerry Springer of homeschools, okay? That's not what we're looking for here. But we would have liked to have seen just a little bit more reality.
Yeah.
Because I think that as a parent, and most parents, we have a dirty home, right? And the kids come home from school and everything's kind of everywhere. And if somebody comes over for the house, you're spending 2 hours cleaning the house because your house is a wreck. Mm-hmm. That's normal.
Yeah.
And that I didn't think came through with what you saw.
Right.
So that was one of the things that was there.
Yeah. And a lot of it was, I think too, they were kind of, I don't know if they were looking for that picture perfect family. And unfortunately, there's no such thing at all.
Nope.
But this is what you got from the movie, that everybody was always dressed nicely, ready for school, and they're eating breakfast together, and the schooling is going perfectly well, and they're following the instructions of their parents, and there was really none of that we saw. Everything was, all the kids were being obedient, doing their work, and
I
think it was a little hard to relate in that aspect.
Well, I think the other place where I think it was hard to relate was everybody they interviewed, at least that they spent significant amount of time on, they were in a much, at least seemingly much better financial situation. Right?
Yes.
It was, they mentioned, I kept waiting for them to talk about anybody can do this, and they did toward the end of the film, but I had already gotten frustrated a little bit, saying, where's the single mom in this? Or are we talking about single moms? Everybody was married. Everybody was going through the perfect thing. They had a husband and wife, both own their own business, which is great. I'm not trying to say don't include those types of people, but husband and wife own their own business, and they had determined that they were both only going to work 20 hours a week, right? So that they could spend time with their kids. Well, most people don't have that option.
No.
And while they acknowledged that in the movie, they didn't show anybody that really talked about the time schedule. And what you got were a lot of entrepreneurs that were on there. They owned their own business. They did their own, everything they did was kind of exotic, or it was, very, I don't know, just more that upper echelon type of thing. Not because it couldn't be less than that, because it can be. We definitely didn't fall into those categories, but I looked at them and they're like, yeah, we went out and we just bought an RV. I can't afford an RV. No. That the RV's not happening for me. I'm not driving across the country, especially with $5 a gallon gas, people. It's not happening. It's not happening.
It's closer to 6 now.
You got a gas guzzler is going to get 2 miles a gallon, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to fill up, drain my bank account. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
Some of what they had done, I think, in targeting this, it would have been better to get a better snapshot of people, if you will, of all different economic strata who were doing this, all different life situations. I felt like it was a little monotheistic, not monotheistic, we're monotheists, never mind. Monolithic is the word I'm trying to think of. It was a little monolithic. It was like everybody was kind of in this category for the most part. And if they weren't, you couldn't tell because the film didn't delineate, right?
Yeah.
Didn't say that this was a single mom. It was here are two people who are together. Here are this other that's happening right there. So, that was one of the things that I really wish that they would have done that I don't think they did very well.
Yeah, and my wife was talking on the way home when we were in the car saying that she felt like she wasn't doing good enough for the way that these families were portrayed.
Right.
A lot of, like Jeremy was saying, they got a fifth wheel and they went traveling with their kids for, I think it was like a year or so.
Yeah.
Or a few years.
Yeah.
They were traveling the countryside, and I'm sorry, but we can't afford that.
Or the one who renovated their, like, we're going to be a homeschool family, we're renovating our garage.
Yeah.
Me, it was, we're homeschooling, go to the kitchen table.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the same thing we do too. I mean, even that, my daughter will sit in the living room on the couch and just do her work. She'll sit at the dinner table. She'll sit on the floor in her room and do work.
And it just would have been nice to be able to see some of that too, right? Because they acknowledged that it didn't matter what economic strata you were from. Homeschooling's for everybody, but I didn't feel like they showed that it was for everyone.
Yeah,
that's the biggest thing that I would say it was lacking.
Yeah, and then going back to what my wife was talking about, was saying that she just felt like, she goes, "Am I doing it right?" Because then she started kind of doubting herself. And because the way the families were portrayed, was saying that,
the picture perfect
family, the wife looks all makeup teaching her kids. Yeah. That's not real. I'm sorry, it's not. Sometimes they go home, my wife is still in her pajamas.
It's not real for 98%. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
there might be 2% who can do that and have a gift of doing that.
Yeah.
That's not even a criticism for the 2% that do.
No, it's not. It's just not in the real sense for us.
So it would have been nice to have a little bit more realism, if you will. And that's part of what it lacks. So, this kind of leads us to our third thing, right? That's what it lacks is some real life examples beyond, I think, where the Kirk Cameron, kind of lives at. Yeah. What would we add? That is not ADD. I mean, we can ADD with the best of them. Yeah. But what would we add to this homeschooling movie? That's what I think this kind of naturally leads into. Yeah. Not just adding from the situations or anything like that. One of the people who was there, his name's Todd Wilson. He has spoken at homeschool conventions before. As a matter of fact, here in Albuquerque, he spoke at a homeschool convention that my family was a part of, which was really cool. And I remember him vividly. As soon as he was up there, I was like, I know that dude. I know that dude.
He looked familiar.
Yeah, I was like, he was like, I think he looks familiar. Like, I know him, and I know exactly where I know him from because he said a story, and he talked about him living with his 7 kids, and he was talking about how and this is at the homeschool convention where he was talking about this, and he was talking about his 7 kids, and he said there was one of his kids and he was feeling like such a failure as a father because he's 8 years old and he can't seem to read, and it's like that one child where, you say CAT, what does that spell? And they say fish. And I remember laughing at that because at that moment in time, I was dealing with those same doubts. I thought, man, that was so encouraging to hear, right? And so I think one of the things that I would add, and they do mention this in the movie as well, is these homeschool conferences are there within your cities to actually help you as parents. As a matter of fact, I think there's one here. Next weekend, the Friday, Saturday, isn't it?
Friday, Saturday, yes.
Yeah, it's the 24th and 25th in Albuquerque. So if you're in the Albuquerque area, you're interested in homeschooling your kids, you want to find out more about it, check out Homeschool Convention 2022. I'm the numbers guy, remember that. Albuquerque, New Mexico, and find out where it's at. I don't know if it's at Legacy Church. It's usually at Legacy or Calvary. Or it's one of the larger churches that usually hosts it. But it's a truly encouraging time. If you don't know what to do, I think that's one of the things I would add is go to that. They talk about that in the movie. They encourage you to go to that, but there's so much information. One of the things that they do well at these conferences is that they really take on some of those things that we pointed out that they're kind of lacking. They cover that. They jump into that with both feet. And you're in there with, at least in the Albuquerque one, when I was doing it, there were like 7,000 people there. So you were not by yourself. You had lots of other people who were there that you could talk with, talk about how they were doing things, find some friends in the midst of that, find somebody who could kind of, encourage you as you were stepping into it for the first time. So that's one of the things that I would say. The second thing I would say is that what would we add? Talk to somebody who homeschools, right? Go watch the movie, but don't let the movie be the standard. I mean, we've already talked to you about how that standard, in some respects, they do a good job of talking about the issues, but the way they present it, the visual of it, looks a little too picture perfect, which can be intimidating. So don't just watch the movie. Go find a homeschool family that's near you and talk with them about the mess of homeschool. Not when I say mess, I don't mean mess as in it's not a blessing. I mean mess as in the real, the life of what it looks like, of how you really walk through those types of things together. When you hit that wall in your child's math, or you hit this the other stuff that's happening, and your child is just, not trying to learn. You're having to be the teacher, and I don't want to learn today. I don't want to learn this month. I don't want to learn this year. What happens when that happens? And it does. Yeah. And it does.
I would like to see what we would add would be more of the realistic sense of what the film was lacking. You know, getting to the muck and mire of the families who are, it's not a perfect homeschool environment, right? It's I would have gone more deeper into reality of everything.
So let's talk deeper in reality, because we have that opportunity here. So what would you say is one of the hardest things you had to deal with as far as being a homeschool dad? And I'll tell you one of the things that was hard for me. For
me is when we decided to do this, and what the film did talk about was, they're not going to have any socialization in their life. It's like, well, who are their friends going to be? Who are they going to hang out with? And that was one of the things I had a hard time with was, well, my kids need to be with other kids. They have to have their friends. And I was encouraged by a homeschool family that were doing it their whole lives and saying that it doesn't matter. They have you. They have the brothers and sisters. They have the church. They have these people that will come alongside them to grow with them, to help them grow. So that was, to me, was a realistic thing, And then also for my wife, she had major doubts in the first few years of teaching our son, our oldest daughter. And she was struggling with, I'm not capable of doing this. I'm going to go crazy. I don't know how to do this. What is the curriculum I need? So my wife, there was a lot of trial and error with what we had to go through. There were days when I would come home and she would be crying and she was, I can't do this. And, and I think for me, being the father, I work full time. I'm the only one that's working. Because we didn't really worry about money, the situation. Right. Because we knew God would provide for us, and it has been great. But those aspects of realistic life, of your wife crying, the husband getting frustrated, you want to send your kids early to see God. You want those are the things that you really struggle with. Yeah. Those are the things we really struggled with. Was the self-doubt, are my kids going to be smart when they finish this? Yeah. And those are the things that were realistic to us in the sense of we can do this.
Yeah, and walking,
And it was frustrating.
Yeah, and I can say all the same things. Matter of fact, I remember some of the tears of Shannon. She would call me up and saying, it's an impossible day. The kids are being horrible.
Yeah.
And it was, this is typical. This is, and so I can't do this. I don't know what, all of this, I think, is just that paradigm shift when you bring it to home.
Yeah.
There's a paradigm shift that takes place. And when you hit against some of those hard times that you've never had to deal with before, then it can seem a little bit overwhelming. As time goes on, you learn how to deal with those things. You learn how your kids learn. You learn how your kids respond. You learn when they've hit a wall and they can't go any further. Like one of my kids, would get to a certain point at night and they'd try and do their math because they wanted to have all their fun first during the day. As a matter of fact, they did talk about that with one of the kids.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
They want to have all their fun first. They did all their fun during the day, and then at 9 o'clock at night, they just had a meltdown. We finally had to come to that conclusion of saying, you have to do your stuff in the morning. You don't have the brain power at the end of the day to do it. It's not because you're not smart, but it's because you want your freedom and you want to take your freedom without your responsibility. And so we had to teach our kids to do that. It was like Trinidad said, a trial and error thing that you're going to work with all of your kids, because all three of your kids, in my case and in his case, are different, right? Yeah. And if you have 7 kids or 4 kids or even one child, your child is going to test those boundaries. It's not going to be the perfect thing all the time. Yep. And you're going to have to make those adjustments. And it isn't pretty. It's not, like I said, that was a picture perfect thing that they would show on there. It's like, oh, we're having a hard day. Everybody load up in the van and they're all happy. It's like, no, it's like, get in the van right now. I'm putting on this adventure in Odyssey so that I won't kill you.
Yeah. I'm going to drop you off somewhere.
This is, we are driving and let's look at God's creation, please. And I'm going to stop by a Starbucks, So it's true, right?
It is true.
It's totally true. So we want to be able to say that's some of that realistic thing that you shouldn't be scared of as a parent. Because I can look back at, after all of it, every single one of those, whatever it was, a meltdown or the hard times, was worth it. My kids are walking with Jesus. My kids are doing fine in the real world, because all of my kids are adults right now. And all but one of them, my youngest is just turned 18 or about to turn 19, excuse me. Yeah. So she's still at home, but my other kids are not at home right now. And guess what? They're doing well. And they're surviving in even this crazy economy, right? Yeah. You know what? God is good. God is good. We're not part of that upper echelon, any type of thing. We're just working families, just like you guys are. Yeah. And so we want to encourage you guys that focusing on that. I would say the other thing that I remember is my wife, after one time, my expectations of my kids being, because we adopt those standards, guys. We adopt that worldly standard, like you have to do this at this age. I think that's one of the things they did really well at the homeschool, saying, you know what? You don't have to. They're lagging behind in something or they're not quite catching it. It's okay that they're a year behind. They'll catch up, And even if they don't necessarily catch up in every area where you want them to be, they may not be doing calculus, by the time that they finish high school. That doesn't mean that you have not done well as a family. You have to teach toward their strengths. I remember sitting down with my wife. I was upset. I was upset with my daughter. 4th and 5th grade workbook, we're doing math. And I'm a numbers guy, so I want her to do well because my ego's at stake if she's not doing her math well, right? And I remember being frustrated with her, and I remember my wife noticing me being overly frustrated. And I remember her leaning to me and just saying, babe, we're focusing on the important things. And by that, she meant Christ. And by that, she meant that we were spending our time building the foundation of faith, which is what we're all about, the Next Generation Ministry. And you know what? She was right. And me laying off was the best thing I could have done. My child ended up catching back up again, doing better the next week, and we were fine again. But it's going back to being faithful to Jesus. That's the foundation we want to build first and foremost. And so, I think that's what we want to just kind of share with you guys today, is that the movie was good. I think we gave it, I gave it a 6.5, 7 out of 10, right? I think we were all about that same thing.
Yeah.
But if you're a homeschool family, you need that raw. If you're thinking about homeschooling and you need that raw, go watch it. It'll be that encouragement.
Yeah.
Don't take to heart the visuals. Don't do that. Go to a homeschool convention. Add to that. Talk to people like Trinidad and myself. Even check us out online. Go to our Facebook page. Say I'm a homeschool parent. How did you deal with blank? We would love to answer those questions too, because we think that really leans into the type of ministry that we're doing.
Yeah, ask in the comments, because I don't do the Facebook thing. I'll do the YouTube comment thing. So you can ask even in the comments here. And one of the things though too I wanted to say is that even though we had our doubts, we struggled with everything, the rewards are so great. Because like Jeremy was saying, I still have one daughter who's 13. We're still homeschooling her. My other two, my son is part of a worship team at one of our churches here in Albuquerque. He's buried. They just celebrated their first anniversary this.
You sound
past
like
weekend.
you said he's buried.
I mean, married. I hope I said buried. Unless he did something wrong to his wife, he might be buried. But he's married. They're all love Christ. They're all on fire for Him. All three of my kids, they've all been baptized. All Jeremy's kids have been baptized. They're all in the Lord, and the rewards of homeschooling and discipling your own children is huge. Is massive. It's great. It's fun. We get to have theological conversations at dinner time with our families together.
Yeah.
And it's just such an encouragement for us to give to you that you can do this no matter what happens. Again, I'm the only one working, but because we love our children so much, we want to homeschool them and to raise them up in the Lord. That's our focus. Whatever they do in their life after, I don't care, as long as they know Jesus Christ. That's all we want for them.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So we just want to encourage you guys. You guys can do this.
Yeah.
Don't let the scary things that we brought out. We just want to be real with you guys, because we don't want you stepping into like, oh, it's going to be this great adventure. And it is going to be a great adventure.
It is.
But we want to take the luster off and bring a little bit of reality into that homeschooling experience, and still tell you it is worth it. It is by far worth it. So if you're considering it, talk with us on Facebook, talk with us on YouTube. We'd love to do that. I want to let you guys know I'm going to be speaking at the Discipleship Begins at Home conference with WIA, Women in Apologetics, coming in September at Tyler, Texas, September 9th and 10th. So if you were in the Tyler, Texas area, you can check it out. You can check out our initial stuff on our Facebook page. You can go to facebook.com/The Next Generation Ministries, and you can find us there and check out that and a lot of other material that we have for you there. But we're excited about being out there. So if you're from the Texas area, the Tyler, Texas area, let us know. Give us a shout out, and we will look forward to seeing you there. Or I will look forward. You're staying here. Sorry.
I'm staying, sorry.
Yeah. So September 9th and 10th. So we're looking forward to that. Thank you guys so much. Hope that helps you guys. Any of you who have watched that the homeschool. What's the name of it? The
Homeschool Awakening.
Oh, good grief. I keep wanting to call it the homeschool experience. That's what we've got. All right. God bless you guys, and we'll talk to you guys again next time.